So just to introduce our speaker today, and that's Dave Boram, who is the CEO of MCA Resources Group, an adaptive leadership consultant, a life and business coach for executives, a professional speaker, and the author of the books Up Where You Belong and Have Do Be Anything You Want. We are very grateful to have Dave to present the psychology of motivation to us. I, for one, am very excited about this, as this is, I feel, a very powerful topic and something that we will really enjoy. So without further ado, over to you, Dave.
Okay, good. Thanks very much, Rayno, and thanks to everybody for joining us. It's wonderful to be able to be with you from sunny and hot George on the southeastern coast of South Africa, a little town, or a town of about 300,000 people on the Garden Route, for those of you that know the area. Beautiful, God's country, and it's wonderful. Very blessed to be able to live here. Just before I start, I just want to mention that we have our next webinar is with Abdul Tijani. Abdul Tijani is a very good friend of mine. I'm very friendly with him and his family, have been for well over 20 years now. He's going to be speaking on the new role of HR. Obviously, it's changed considerably. And that'll be on the 9th of July, 2020 at 1300 hours Central African time. It's the same time that we have for this webinar. Abdul is a career HR practitioner with over 24 years in the corporate world. He now runs his own HR consultancy called People Matter out of Dubai. And I can strongly recommend Abdul to you. He's extremely ethical, a very, very good family man, and extremely knowledgeable. So please join us on Thursday, the 9th of July for our next webinar. We'd love to have you joining us. So we're here to discuss motivation. So what is motivation? If we look at this particular photograph that you see on the screen, do you think this gentleman is highly motivated at the moment? Any answers to that? Please just go ahead and answer, unmute yourself, and just answer as and when you feel like it. So what do you think? Is this gentleman highly motivated at the moment? Okay, so
Dave,
yes, in a way, he is motivated.
In a way.
Yes, he is
in a way. Okay, yes.
There is a clear and present danger, which is motivating him to actually move out of the way of danger.
Excellent. Yeah, very much so. So he has a huge hippo running behind him, and we know as Africans that the hippos kill more people than any other animal in Africa. And so I reckon that this gentleman is highly motivated at the present moment. So when we talk about motivation and we look at it just as a basic definition of it, we talk about motivation being a motive for action, motivation. In other words, a reason for doing something. We can see that this gentleman has a huge reason for doing something, and he's motivated by what we call the hippo and the fear that goes with it. So when we look at motivators, reasons for doing things, there are basically three reasons that people do things. The first is out of fear. 99% of the world's population, unfortunately, are motivated by fear. So this is when people act out of fear. They do things because they're scared of what might happen to them if they don't do those things. See, a problem with that is that fear motivation can be effective, but only for short periods. You've got to be there all the time to carry on motivating your people with fear. Either the person will learn to live with the fear or they'll go somewhere else. People learn to live with fear by learning how to do just enough in order to avoid trouble. In other words, when the whip is out, they do something. But when the whip is put away, they relax. It's like the old adage, when the cat's away, the mice play. But as soon as the cat comes back, there's motivation again. And this is fear motivation, by far the most powerful of all the motivators, because that's how most people are motivated, unfortunately. The second type of motivator is what we call incentive motivation, reward motivation, if you like. This is when people do something because they want a reward, and there's nothing wrong with that. The challenge, however, is that this type of motivation doesn't really work very well unless the person actually believes they can achieve the reward. If the belief is that they cannot achieve the reward, it demotivates. It doesn't motivate. So in other words, what we're saying is that all the factors have to be right for incentive motivation to work effectively. In other words, the donkey's got to be hungry enough. The carrot's got to be big and juicy enough. The hill's got to be shallow enough, and the cart has got to be light enough. And then the donkey won't have a problem putting it up the hill. But if the factors aren't right, it doesn't motivate, it demotivates. So what I've shared with you so far is two forms of motives, fear and incentive. In other words, the whip and the carrot. Problem with these two forms of motivation is that they're both external. If you take the whip or the carrot away, where's the motive? Any ideas? Please feel free to talk.
If you take the whip and the carrot away, then it means that you have to be intrinsically motivated to take an action.
Brilliant. Excellent answer. Whoever that was a brilliant answer. Yes. So the third type of motivator is what we call purpose or attitude motivation. And as the person who's just spoken to us now said, attitude motivation is what a person discovers their internal reasons for doing things. In other words, their purpose for their life. It's intrinsic. It comes from within, not without. As they act on their purpose, they gain self-respect and the respect of others. This person finds the tools, and this is critically important as we're going to find out as we move along, to build their self-belief, their faith, their self-confidence and self-image. If you don't, or if you're not able to build self-belief, if you're not able to build your faith in your ability, your self-confidence and your self-image, you'll never, ever get what you want. Never. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that as I take you through the psychology of motivation. In other words, these are the ingredients: belief, faith, self-confidence, and self-image that make attitude-motivated people empowered performers. They believe in themselves. They have the confidence to do the things that they need to do, and therefore they continue to grow and develop themselves and achieve the things that they really and truly want in life. So if we were going to really look at a good definition of motivation, I would suggest that motivation is the energizing and control of purposeful behavior towards specific goals. In other words, when you're living your life on purpose, you're doing something because it's intrinsic, it's meaningful to you. It means something extremely important to you as a human being. It's amazing the energy that you have within your life to do the things you want to do. Let me give you an example. If you had to, for example, get ill and you had to go off to hospital and you had the option of two nurses nursing you, one whose purpose was to pay the bills at the end of the month, because that's for a lot of people is their purpose. And the second one whose purpose was to save people's lives. Which of those two would you rather have nurse you?
The one whose purpose is to save human life.
Excellent. Brilliant. Which one of those two do you think is likely to have a smile on her face?
The one with the purpose.
Yep, you bet. The one with a purpose. And which one of those two do you think is likely to take ownership and responsibility for her own education rather than waiting for the state or somebody else to educate her?
Can you please repeat the question, I guess?
Sure. Which one of those two do you think is likely to take ownership for her own education instead of waiting for somebody else or the state to educate her?
The one with a purpose.
Yeah.
Excellent. And that's what we're talking about. She's living her life on purpose. Now, having said all that, and we look at the difference in these purpose. There are two principles of motivation, and it's really important that we understand them. The first principle of motivation is that you're either motivated by inspiration or desperation. Most people, unfortunately, are motivated by desperation. They wait until their backs are against the wall before they really do anything about changing. Very few people motivate themselves through inspiration. We'll discuss that. And the second one is that pain pushes you until your vision begins to pull you. So when you start something, start to change something in your life, you've got to go through a pain. And the pain will push you to a certain extent. But you need a vision. You need to be able to see the outcome that you're working towards with white hot intensity in order for the vision to start to pull you. There's a huge, huge power in being motivated by your purpose and your vision. So I want to just share with you so that we understand the context of what I'm going to be talking about, what I call the 4 classes of experience. Except I'm only going to be sharing with you the first 2. There's a reason for that. The first class of experience are those experiences that feel good, that are good for you, that are good for others, and they also serve the greater good. These are what we call our peak experiences: contributing, serving, adding value, empowering others, etc., etc. The second class of experience are those that do not feel good, but they are good for you. They're good for others and they serve the greater good. These are the ones that most people want to avoid. But the secret is that they bring about joyous, successful, and a fulfilling life. In other words, let's say, for example, we want to exercise. It's painful to exercise. It doesn't feel good. But as we start to do it more and more and more, we can't do without it. I've often heard friends of mine who are long-distance runners tell me that when they first started running, it was really painful. Their joints ached. It was painful to have to get up early, etc., etc. But they got to a stage in their lives where they couldn't do without it. And that means they've converted what we call a class 2 experience into a class 1 experience, where now it feels good. And this is what we mean. This is what allows people to grow and develop. When they're converting their class 2, studying is another one. When they convert their class 2 into class 1, it brings about incredible fulfillment, happiness, and joy. So what I want to do with you now is I want to share with you what we call the 4 laws of motivation. These normally need to be in place in order to be motivated effectively. So the first law of motivation is that the perceived reward must always be greater than the perceived price. In other words, am I seeing the pain or am I seeing the pleasure? Because if I'm seeing the pain, what do you think happens to my motive? Well, if I'm not able to see the pleasure, sorry, go ahead.
Yes. The question again.
Yeah, if I'm seeing pain, in other words, I'm wanting to work towards something, but all I'm seeing is the pain, what do you think happens to me doing something?
It lowers your rate of actually doing it. I raised my hand to actually ask a question before we go to the 4 laws of motivation. Mr. Boam, you said that if you want to convert a class, the class 1, you feel good doing it. The class 2, you actually don't feel good doing it, but that is what actually is good for you. That is what actually will give you the ultimate fulfillment that you want. It's funny that you should use exercise as an example, because just this week, I have decided to shed off some level of weight. And anytime I have to go to the field to actually run, I basically have to talk to myself and encourage myself, because when I look at the laughs I'm going to go through, the pain and the ache, it has a way of actually discouraging me from even going to the field at all in the first place to go and run. So in this case, apart from me trying to talk to myself, is there anything else you can do with the class 2 to motivate you to do the class 2? Because it looks as if it's very difficult to actually do the class 2.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. And this is what I was talking about. Your pain, at the moment, you're having to push yourself to get through the pain. But what you've got to be focusing is not on the pain, but on what is the new you going to look at. What are the look-alike? What is the benefit? What are the benefits of you being losing weight, feeling healthier? Maybe you have more energy. Maybe you have to do more things. Maybe you can wear the clothes you want to wear. Maybe you feel good around people, etc., etc. Those are the things that you need to be focusing on and seeing them in your mind's eye over and over and over again. Because you're focusing on the pain, and the pain's outweighing the pleasure, you'll never be able to do it. And that's the problem with so many things. So the second law is clearly evaluate the benefits. You've got to be able to see the rewards, the benefits with white hot intensity in your mind's eye. That's the power of visualization. That's why we've been given that incredible blessing, whereby as human beings we have that third dimension of thought, whereby we're able to see things in our mind's eye long before they happen in reality. And you can see the new you. You can see the person who's feeling fit and healthy and vital and being able to do the things you want to do, etc., etc. You need to experience that in your mind's eye now. And that will help to motivate you through that pain until your vision starts to pull you. I hope that's answered the question.
Yeah, yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're most welcome. Okay, so clearly evaluate the benefits. You know, just an interesting thing. Jeremy Bentham, who was an English philosopher, jurist, and social reformer, way back in between 1748 and 1842, said, nature has placed mankind under the government of two sovereign masters, pain and pleasure. They govern us in all we do, in all we say, in all we think. Every effort we can make to throw off our subjection will serve but to demonstrate and confirm it. In other words, everything we do either for pain, to avoid pain, or to gain pleasure. That's it. So what are we focusing on? You have the ability to focus on either of those, on the pain or the pleasure. But I can promise you now, what you focus on will determine whether you're motivated or not. So the next one is establish where you stand now in relation to where you want to go. I always say to people, if you want to get from, for example, from George to Johannesburg in South Africa, it's a very good idea to know that you're actually in George. Otherwise, you wouldn't know which direction to take. And that, therefore, wouldn't allow you to strategize effectively to be able to get to Johannesburg. And that's the same with our lives. Most people don't really know who they are and where they are in themselves, I'm talking about. And therefore, it's very difficult for them to be able to break something down into bite-sized, believable, achievable pieces so that they can see the rewards with white-hot intensity. And the fourth one is to find your own hot button. Not your belly button, but your hot button. In other words, what do you think I mean when I'm talking about a hot button? Anybody?
I'm very pleased that you feel good.
Okay, so you feel good, all right?
Morning. Oh, no, it's okay. I was just thinking to call you. Yes, I've picked my phone twice to call you. How are you? Everything's okay.
Can you please just turn off your speaker, your microphone if you're not going to be talking? Please just switch that off if you don't mind. The question is hot button. What is a hot button? Well, when we talk about hot button, we talk about your real motive, your real reason for doing things. Most people don't really know what it is. So what I want to do is I want to spend a bit of time taking you through this reason, this hot button, so that you know and understand what your reason is for doing things in your life at the present moment. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a theory of motivation as proposed by Abraham Maslow. Abraham Maslow, for those of you that might have studied his theory of human needs and wants, this hierarchy of human needs and wants, is known as the father of humanistic psychology. And he developed this theory of motivation. They're not the only theory around. There are many theories. There's Skinner's theory, there's Fruin's theory, there's Hertzberg's theory. There are even the more modern day theories of Scott Peck and Stephen Covey and so on. But all of these theories seem to come back to Maslow's hierarchy of human needs and wants. So what do we understand by the terminology hierarchy? What is a hierarchy? Anybody, please?
I would say according to order.
Okay.
According to order incrementally.
Excellent. So almost a pecking order is what you're suggesting, or an order of importance, so to speak. Excellent. Great. So what he's saying to us that air is the most basic human need. Nobody can live without it. Is there anybody who would disagree with that? So when we talk about the need, we're saying that air is our most basic need. You won't be motivated to look for water or food or sleep until you are fulfilled in the need for air. In other words, let's say we got rid of the air where you are at the present moment, in the room that you're sitting in or where you're standing or whatever you're doing, and we got rid of all that air. You wouldn't be listening to this webinar now because I wouldn't be here either. I'd also be motivated to try and get air. And this is exactly what we're talking about. Until that need is fulfilled, you're not going to be motivated to get the next. Air would be then your hot button. So even though this hierarchy of Maslow's is formulated in a model of a triangle, that wasn't the model that he actually brought out. He actually put up a stepladder. And the stepladder, I think, illustrates it a little more clearly. Because what he's saying is that until you are fulfilled in air, you're not going to be motivated to get water. And likewise, until you have water, you're not going to be motivated to get food, etc., etc. So what I want you to do in your individual capacity, I want you to be able to ascertain where you think you are fulfilled in your life right now. You remember, you can't jump a rung. You need to be fulfilled in the rung beneath you in order to be motivated to get the rung above you. I hope I've explained that clearly. If anybody would like to share with us what they may be suggesting as to where they might be, please go ahead. It'll help us just to illustrate this a little more clearly. Don't worry, just share with us where you think you are fulfilled in your life up to now. Anybody, please.
Okay, with me, I would say that I will be around, with a triangle, I'll be on the next level, which would be, is it sex, security, love?
Yes, so on that area, okay,
On
around
that
sex,
area.
security, love.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much for your honesty. Excellent. Anybody else? Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Dave. I think I would be around respect and acceptance.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for your input. Anybody else?
Hello, Dave.
Hi.
Okay, this is Emmanuel. I also
Yes,
think I will
Emmanuel.
be around the acceptance and respect area.
Okay, thanks, Emmanuel. Excellent. Yeah, excellent. Great. Anybody else? All right, well, we've had 3 people contribute. One suggests that they might be around the sex, love area, security area. The other 2 have suggested around about respect, recognition, somewhere around there. Thank you very much. That's really great of you to have contributed. Let's try and understand this and why this is so important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a question. And when I ask you this question isn't only aimed at you, it's also part of me. It's also aimed at me. And the question is very simply this, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourselves as you answer this question, please. Are you doing everything you possibly can in your life right now to become the kind of person you really want to be? I'm going to repeat it. Are you doing everything you possibly can in your life right now to become the kind of person you really want to be?
Dave, I will say, for me, I will say yes, but with
Anybody would like to answer that?
Hello.
But with somewhat?
I would say yes, but there are some, it's not 100% yes, because
Okay.
I am.
So in other words, it's no. In other words, it's no. You're not doing everything you possibly can in your life right now.
Okay, so the question is everything. So I wouldn't say everything because there's that element of a little bit of procrastination here and there.
Okay, good. Thanks. Honest answer. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
For me, I would say making efforts. I haven't reached the everything part, but I think I'm making efforts to get there.
Excellent. Brilliant. That's what I like to hear. Good. So we haven't done everything, but we're making effort. That's good. I think that's most of the people that are on this webinar would be in that category anyway, because you're the kind of people that want to grow and develop. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So congratulations on that and well done. Yes. Okay. So that's good. Now, the question I now have for you is why not? Why aren't we doing everything we possibly can to become the kind of person we want to be? Anybody?
Well, like I said, I'm grappling with a little bit of procrastination here and there.
Okay, so what do you think's causing that procrastination?
It's because normally I mentally evaluate things in my head, and when I get the answers for it, to take action to execute it, because I've been able to resolve it in my head, I play the, okay, I've resolved it in my head. I can do it anytime that I really want to do. And then procrastination sets in. By the time I really want to take action, I realize that time is against me.
Okay, so what you're saying is, have other people done what you want to do?
Yes.
Okay, so what's preventing you from doing it?
Because inwardly I believe that I can do it. I mean, I have resolved, okay, I need ABCD to achieve what I really want to achieve. Okay, I can move here and there and then I will achieve it. But to take the actual action to achieve what I really need, I delay in taking that action.
That's the question. So why do you think you're doing that? What's preventing you from taking that action?
I think it's lack of discipline as well.
I believe
yes.
Yes.
So what causes us to lack discipline?
Sometimes fear.
Okay, so what causes fear?
The unknown. Maybe I will feel along the line. I'm scared that when I start, I might feel on the line.
Okay, so failure along, or fear of the unknown, or fear of loss, or what do people? I beg your pardon? Carry on. There was somebody that wanted to say something.
Good.
Lack of motivation. Okay, all that sort of thing. So the reason is that we don't believe enough in ourselves to do it. In other words, the fear is responsible, or belief, or lack of belief is responsible for fear. Let me ask you this question. If you knew that you couldn't fail, would you do it?
Certainly.
Absolutely.
No. Yes.
Certainly.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. So if we were looking at belief, and I've always said to people, for me, the most challenging situation in the world today is people's lack of self-belief. When I tell world leaders this, they look at me as if I'm mad. But I'm serious. It is the biggest challenge facing the world today. Because if people don't believe in themselves, you can tell them whatever you like. You can manipulate them. You control them. That's why the world is being controlled by fear. But if we were looking at this rung, this ladder, and we were going to place a step on that ladder called self-belief, where would you place it?
That will be on the self-esteem.
The self-esteem area, okay? So self-esteem, good. Anybody else? Why would you place it at self-esteem?
You asked that.
I would place it on love.
Okay, you'd place it in love. Why? Why would you place it there on love? Okay, so somebody said self-esteem and somebody said love. Anybody else? Nobody. Okay, good. So let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at it. I'm going to go and explain Maslow's hierarchy now so that we can understand it. Because if it's the lack of self-belief that's holding us back, we need to understand where it is on the hierarchy so that we can overcome that, so that we can then progress and achieve the things that we really want. Would everybody agree with what I've just said? Is there anybody who feels they can't agree with what I've just said? Okay, so I'm assuming that everybody agrees with me. So let's look at the first area at the bottom here. We call this, or Maslow calls it, our basic physiological needs. In other words, nobody can live without having those physiological needs fulfilled. And I don't think anybody would disagree with that. We all need air, water, food, and sleep to survive. Okay? The next level up, this area that you see in the red, that's what he calls our security needs. The need for shelter, which is protection from the elements. For some people, it could be a park bench. For somebody else, a lovely home or villa somewhere. Clothing, again, protection from the elements. Sex. What is sex? Well, every human being, every male and female at the age of puberty is endowed with a desire for sex. It's in order to secure the ongoing procreation of the human species. But it's only a base desire. That's all it is. That can be fulfilled on your own. It can be fulfilled with a prostitute or whatever the case may be. The intimacy of love making is fulfilled in an intimate one-on-one relationship of love. This here is base. All it is suppressing the desire. What do we think he meant by security? What is security? Anybody like to answer that? What, in your opinion, is security?
Yeah, Dave, for me personally, security, as I understand it, is where I will be able to achieve self-sustainability in terms of my financial life, where I can provide for my family, I can provide for my household without struggling. That is how I understand security.
Okay, so what would give you that ability?
That is financial security, the financial endowment.
Okay, so having money in the bank, investments, things like that, that would give you your security that you're speaking about. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Anybody else? What would give you security?
Basically, everything and anything that would make me feel safe.
Okay, so what would make you feel safe? Steph?
It depends on what you're talking about. It could be financial, like the other gentlemen have said. It could be physical. It could be anything that I need to just not feel afraid.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
I think it's like protection from failures. Failure.
Protection from failures.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would give you protection from failures?
Just avoid not doing the things that you know will eventually end in failure. Like if you start, for instance, if you start a business and you take a chance, right? Just not taking certain chances that you know will cause you to fail without trying it.
Okay. All right. So not taking chances, not taking risks, etc. In other words, comfort zone. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's have a look at that. When we look at security, it's really important for us to understand that there are two forms of security. The first form of security is what we call outer security. This is what everybody looks for in order to make them feel secure. Things like investments, a secure job, insurances, burglar bars, firearms, property, political security, money, qualifications, relationships, medical aid, company cars, etc., etc., etc. Unfortunately, my friends, this is a false sense of security. If you're focusing on those things to make you feel secure, you're always going to live in fear of losing them. Therefore, you never feel secure. The only form of security is what we call internal security. It starts with self-belief. That's why I'm saying it's so important to understand where belief is on that ladder. Because this is what holds people back. The problem is that belief is a passive thing. You can believe as much as you like, but until you put your belief into action, into faith, nothing really changes. So it's when you put your belief into action. In the Bible, it says faith without the works, without the action, means nothing. It's dead. So you've got to take belief and you've got to move your belief into action. And when you start moving your belief into action, into doing things, in other words, not holding back from the business venture, not holding back from getting out there and exercising or whatever it is that you're wanting to achieve, and you get out there and you start doing things, you start developing your confidence. Confidence is the opposite of fear. The more you stay in your comfort zone, the greater the fear becomes, the fear of wanting to hold on to all the outer security, holding on to that to try and make you feel secure, but you're always living in fear of losing it. Therefore, you're not secure. And when you act in faith, in relation to your values, in other words, you do the things that are related to your values, you develop a healthy self-image. In other words, you learn to trust, you learn to love, you learn to accept, and you learn to respect yourself as a person who is worthy. This is incredibly powerful because until we develop that self-image that I'm speaking about here, you will never ever get what you really and truly want, which I'm going to be sharing with you now. And so where we need to discover that hot button is that you'll tend to find that self-belief, faith, self-confidence, and self-image, which is your inner security, and the only form of security that exists. Remember, outer security doesn't exist. I'm not saying it's bad to have any of those things. What I'm saying is that if you're focusing on those things to make you feel secure, you're always going to live in fear of losing it. If you were asked, or you wanted to go into your business, for example, and you wanted money to start the business, and you went along to your bank manager and you said to your bank manager, please give me $100,000 in order to start my business. The bank manager is going to say, well, what security do you have? And you say, well, I've got a house. And if he says, well, then cede the house to the bank and I'll give you the money. And if you say, well, my house is my security, I'm not going to give it to you, he's not going to give you the money. But if you know that you know that you can, you give him the house and you get the money. And this is the whole thing about aspect of security. So when we go back to Maslow's hierarchy and we look at Maslow's hierarchy again, we'll see there that at this area here, security, we're talking about inner security because it's the only form of security that exists. When you believe, when you have the faith, when you have the confidence to do the things that you really and truly want to do, that are aligned with what you value. You learn to trust, you learn to love, you learn to accept, and you learn to respect yourself. Now, that rung needs to be fulfilled before you can move into the next rung. This rung here, Maslow refers to, and by the way, sorry, security here is where our ego starts. Okay, our ego is fulfilled at self-esteem, but it starts at security. Somebody got a question? Hello? Okay. I hear somebody on the mic. If you're not going to ask a question, please switch it off. Thank you very much. So what does Maslow mean by this level here? This level that you're seeing in the purple. That he refers to as our love and social needs. Every single human being has the need to be loved. They have the need to feel important. They have the need to be recognized. They have the need to be respected. People want to know that other people like them. That's why you see our soccer players, the minute they score a goal, they run to the crowds. They love it. Children say, Mommy, Daddy, look at me. We want people to see us. We want people to like us. We want people to love us. Ask anybody of marriageable age what they want more than anything else if they're not married or if they're not in a relationship is love. It is the most powerful motivator once your basic needs have been met. In other words, an intimate one-on-one relationship with somebody else. But you see, the problem is you have so many people in relationships who are not fulfilled in their love because they haven't yet learned to love themselves, which is that security. So it doesn't matter how many times people tell them they love them, they don't believe it. It's incongruent with their belief system. That's why they're always trying to look for this love and pushing people away in the process. That's why it's so important for us to build our security, our sense of belief, faith, confidence, and self-image, which is at this security area here. Acceptance, Maslow says, is a greater form of love. People around you accept you. It's not intimate, not a one-on-one relationship. You feel accepted by your friends, your peers, your colleagues, your extended family, etc., etc. And respect is a greater form of acceptance. In other words, when people respect you, they do what you do. When they accept you, they will listen to you. But when they respect you, they'll do what you do. Recognition is a greater form of respect, and status is a greater form of recognition. You can have status as a mother or a father, or as a business leader, or as a sports person, or as a member of an organization, or as a teacher. It doesn't matter. This is the power that comes through that. But let's assume you had all the status you wanted, but nobody recognized you. You'd still be looking for that recognition. If you had all the recognition you wanted, but nobody respected you, you'd still be looking for the respect. If you had all the acceptance you wanted, but nobody actually intimately loved you, you'd still be looking for that love. And this is what we're talking about. People are searching for this all the time. That's why they wear the clothes they wear. They drive the cars they drive. They want to live in the areas they want to live in. They want to have a position in an organization which gives them a level of status. They want to be able to show all their degrees and all their education and how great they are, etc., etc. There's nothing wrong with that because people need that. And that's selfish. It's a very selfish thing, but it's different to being self-centered. When people are self-centered, it's all about them. When they're selfish, they're doing things for their own gain. Nothing wrong with that. When they're self-centered, everybody needs to focus on them because they feel so alone, feel so inept within themselves. And only when we've overcome the need for other people to approve of us, for other people to love us, for other people to like us, etc., etc. We've overcome what we call our ego. And then Maslow says we reach a level of self-esteem, the ego need. We've overcome our selfishness. Now we can start giving without wanting in return. You see at the level just below that, at this level in the purple here, we give on condition. So I'll give you something on condition that you give me something. I'll give you love on condition that you give me love. I'll do this for you on condition that you do that for me. Once we've overcome that, we can now give unconditionally. It's called pure love. We don't have a need for other people's approval. We don't need to do things to get the approval of others. Now we've reached a level of esteem. And if you look up the word esteem, it means a high regard. Self-esteem will mean a high regard for self. Therefore, when we're talking about a high regard, you cannot have a low self-esteem. You cannot have a low high regard for yourself or a high regard for self. You reach a level of esteem. That means you regard yourself extremely highly. And when we've overcome the need to prove that to ourselves, Maslow then says we develop into actualization. Now and he calls that the spiritual or the creative area of our lives. Now we have reached what we call an area of absolute peace. Non-worry, non-fear, non-anxiety. One of the most powerful scriptures in the Bible is simply this: be still and know that I am God. It doesn't mean keep quiet. It means be at absolute peace. Now you are at one with your Creator, your universe. But most people are so worried about everything that they're not at peace. And therefore the focus isn't on anything else but themselves. So it's important for us to understand that at all these levels, we can have a self-image. In other words, the way you see yourself. For example, somebody at this low level here, at the area of the pink and the red, those people, mainly the pink, those people will go out and say, please give me money. And you can tell them to get lost. And they go to the next person. Because they're not there looking for your love, acceptance, respect, and recognition. They're looking to survive. And the minute they get that money, what do? They eat, drink, sleep, have sex, and the next day they're doing the same thing. When we grow ourselves, when we develop ourselves, we move up. So a person at self-esteem has a very high self-image. So people can have low self-images and high self-images, but they can never have a low self-esteem or a high self-esteem. When you're esteemed, you have a high regard for yourself. So, having said that now, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, where would you now think or place yourself on that ladder? Bearing in mind that you need to be fulfilled in all the rungs beneath it. Any ideas?
I have a question, Mr. Boam.
Please go ahead.
Answering that question.
Please.
Is it possible that you could be on self-esteem without actually knowing it?
Well, the thing is, it's very unusual. It's very unlikely. You see, the thing about self-esteem, you wouldn't walk around saying, well, I'm now esteemed. I'm an esteemed individual, etc., etc. What you would feel is you'd experience it. It would be so secure within yourself. You'll be doing the things you want to do. You'll be sharing with people what you want to share. You wouldn't feel threatened. You wouldn't feel worried. You wouldn't experience fear. In other words, insecurity, because you're so secure within yourself. Now you're humble. You're able to give. You're able to listen. You're able to learn. You're able to grow. You're able to share, etc., etc. That's the behavior that comes from being so secure within yourself.
I think if I could just add something on that question. Maybe if you've never been exposed to the information or the knowledge that you've just heard, You could find some people that can't put a name to it, and I think that's maybe what could be referred to there. I'm there, but I don't know it. But I think as soon as the information becomes available, somebody would realize, my goodness, yes, I think that's where I am. I don't think one necessarily needs to know about Maslow and all the information to climb this ladder. It is a process of growth and spiritual and emotional and relational growth when somebody gets busy with their personal development. And I think that's quite possible that somebody could be right up there without knowing it, but if they receive the information, they will surely be able to pinpoint it.
Okay, very good point. Very good point. Thank you. Thanks, Steph. Very good point. Any other questions?
Hello, Dave.
Hi.
Thank you for the submission, and I think it's been very educational. Is it possible that one can catapult his or himself from one level to the top level, say from, the, how do you call it, from security all the way to, say, self-actualization or self-esteem within a very short period of time?
No, it's not possible to do it within a very short period of time. It is possible to do it over a fairly short period of time, but not over a short period of time, because you have to go through learning, you have to go through the refinement, if you like. You can't build confidence overnight. Confidence is built by continuously growing, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and growing again. So we always say we need to be learning, unlearning, and relearning all the time. We need to be understanding. The problem with a lot of people is that the reason why they don't learn and they don't grow is because they don't spend the time required to self-respect, introspect, I should say, to really discover who they really are. And you remember, one of the aspects of motivation is we need to know where we are in relation to where we want to go. So people want to be actualized overnight, or they want quick things, or they want quick fixes. The quickest fix is to understand there is no quick fix. And the quicker we can understand that there is no quick fix, the quicker we can get to self-actualization. It's a process of growth. I hope that answers the question, by the way.
Well, I think it's yeah. I can relate with what you're saying, that it doesn't happen overnight, but then also it's a process. Now, being mindful of that process, I think, would help. Like you're saying, that you're going through a journey. But I also see the other side where somebody will say, please allow me, if you happen to be the boss, please allow me to make all the mistakes because I'm still learning and I'll get there one day, right? How do you properly guide it in such a way that, you achieve it in good time?
Well, there's a lovely statement that says that most people fail themselves to success. They make mistakes. The interesting thing is that they don't continue to make the mistakes. They learn from their mistakes. So yes, we're going to make mistakes. That's part of life. We can learn from those mistakes, but we can also learn from other people's mistakes. But if we're not reading, and if we're not listening, and if we're not participating in a webinar or things like this that can grow us and develop us, we continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again because we don't self-introspect, we don't learn, we don't change our approach, etc., etc. Part of learning is to make mistakes, but not to continuously make those mistakes.
Right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, if we finished with any other questions, I don't know whether there are any questions. I just want to quickly finish off with what we call fear, because fear, as I said to you, really dominates most people's lives. And the definition of fear is really false evidence that appears real. It's not there. It's a perception. We perceive that to be the case. And the more you stay in your comfort zone, the more you hold yourself back from doing the things that you really want to do, the greater the fear becomes. When you confront issues, fear begins to be replaced by faith and confidence. And that's the difference. So Eleanor Roosevelt, just in finishing, said, you gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You must do the things you think you cannot do. My friends, just to finish off, those of you that are part of the MCA Executive Club, it's great to have you here. Well done. And those of you that aren't, please look at joining the MCA Executive Club. It's an elite leadership, business and personal development training platform where we have daily and weekly videos. We have monthly live webinars. We have leadership library from leaders all around the world, coaches, trainers from all around the world. And then we have a whole host of online courses that we present. So that's all available to members of the MCA Executive Club. It's a very powerful platform for your growth and development. Just to remind you before I leave, our next MCA Training International webinar will be the new role of HR presented by Abdul Hussein Tijani on the 9th of July 2020 at 1300 Central African time. That's the same time that you joined us for this particular webinar. Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask? Raynor, I'll hand the time back to you.
Thanks, Dave. Great presentation as always. That was very interesting and informative. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that. I'm sure everyone that participated would agree. As Dave said, if there are any questions, you're welcome to ask now. If there are any more, as I know we've had during the presentation, which is fantastic. So if there are any other unresolved questions, you're welcome to ask that now. You can either unmute and ask the question to Dave, or you can type it in the chat box and we can attend to that question. So any questions, guys, before we close off for today? Emmanuel, I see you've unmuted. Do you have a question?
Yes, Reno.
So go ahead, Emmanuel.
Okay, so Dave, just
Yes,
want to
Emmanuel.
ask, when we were talking about the thing that pushes you, either the first class or the second class, and one of the colleagues made a point that if you visualize, or he can visualize things in his mind and say that, look, I can do this, and it's a matter of sitting down and doing it. Would you say that sometimes over-reliance on our ability or our skill or overconfidence is rather the thing that brings about that procrastination? That, oh, I look at the thing and I said, okay, I can deal with this. Once I sit down, I'll be able to do it. So it will take me a day, 2 days. It shouldn't be a problem. And you don't do it though. And, before you realize it's getting close to time. Would you say it's over-reliance on somebody's talents, their skill, or their natural abilities that is rather causing that? I'm not too sure. And how do we get that out of the way so that, once you visualize it, you crack it, and then it's done, you nib it in the bud, like as they say?
Well, I think Emmanuel, that's a very good question. I think that there are people who rely too much on their talent, and therefore they don't do the things that they need to do because they think that their talent can just pull them through. And we've all been blessed with talents. That's a natural thing that we all have. Most people don't even know their talents, but we've all been blessed with them. Talents give us confidence. But the process is that we have to use those talents. We have to work with those talents. We have to develop those talents in order for us to be able to progress and grow, as we do with our skills. Now, there's a difference between a talent and a skill. Skill is something we have to learn, and a talent is something we're blessed with. But if we don't know what those talents are, we never use them. Or if we think we have the talent and therefore we don't need to practice it or use it effectively, we lose it. And so it's a very important aspect that you're talking about, where people need to use both their skills and their talents and continuously learn, unlearn and relearn, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, in order to grow. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah.
Great.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, let's just finish off very, very quickly with just to say thank you very much from my side for joining us, for being with us. It's been a pleasure to be able to share this information with you. I trust that you've been able to learn a lot from it. It takes a little bit of time to get used to it. So please go through it again with the recording, listen to it, learn from it. If you need to ask any questions or drop me a line, please do that. Don't hesitate. Feel free to be able to contact me. It's fine. And then just please take a few minutes, if you haven't already done so, just to do the following. Either like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or connect with us on LinkedIn. Thank you very, very much to you all. Ranulph, to you for the hosting it, and to everybody for your questions, your participation, and for being part of our webinar today. Ranulph, I hand the time back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Just to echo Dave's words, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Please don't forget to also register for our next webinar on the 9th of July. That is something that you won't want to miss with Abdul. As Dave has said, he's someone that has a lot of insights and a lot of knowledge and experience, especially in the HR field. So I'm sure this is something that you really don't want to miss, that you'll really benefit from. So thank you so much, everyone. We've got your emails and your information. We'll make sure that we get that all to you. Have a lovely day and take care, and God bless. Thank you so much.